This is WEBurlesque.
This is Obscura Fox.
This is Mini Tonka.
This is Milo Pony.
This is Trey DeMarc.
My name is Nikki Boo, and you are listening to WEBurlesque Season 10.
Fabulous. This is WEBurlesque, the podcast, and I'm your host, Viktor Devon. And through the miracle of fiber optics, I get to talk to nightlife individuals in the field of drag, burlesque, and cabaret. And today is no exception, for I have Catty on the line. Hello, hello.
Hi, Viktor. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. Now, your name is a bit of a throwback to sort of a chaos or a Hurly Burly or a what have you. Where did such a moniker come from?
You know, it's actually a great story that I love to tell because technically my name was given to me, which I think is such a beautiful, like, you know, just something that can happen when you have a mentor who knows you, they gift you a name. So I started in the burlesque world when I was 21 years old, so it's been quite a long time. And when I first got into it, I was an English major in college, you know, and so I loved what I was seeing, but I was like, okay, if I do this, I want people to know that I've got a brain behind these boobs. That it was very important to me, you know, that
The intellectual.
Exactly. They should recognize that I am an intellectual. And so when I was thinking about what my burlesque name should be, I was coming up with all sorts of pretentious bullshit, right? Like I was I was like, yes, okay, I think I'll be Odette de Classy from Proust, right? I think
No one would be able to pronounce that for the rest of your life. You would be
exactly. Literally, possibly the worst possible burlesque name anyone has ever come up with. And actually very uncreative because it's literally just someone's name from a book.
well.
So finally I landed on that I wanted to be named Catty Compson, which is from The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. And there's
Okay.
this whole scene where she's like climbing a tree in her muddy underwear. And I was like, yes, this is like a reclamation of the feminine, the feminine dirty filthiness and whatever. So I said before I went on as a stage kitten for the first time, the host asked me, hey, what's your name? And I said, Catty Compson. And she said, Catty Wompass. She was just so thrilled by that. She was like, I haven't heard that word in so long. Like I thought that was just a Southern thing. And she was so excited. And it was one of those moments where I felt like I had been struck by lightning,
Mm.
where I had just like so many thoughts at once. And I realized in that split second, I was like, I'm wrong. I'm not right in my thinking. Like burlesque is I don't owe it to people to tell them that they should think of me as more than a bimbo on stage, right? Like that's it I finally like realized that that was kind of the point of it, was that if you are making an assumption that I am not an intellectual, that's a failure of your imagination, right? That's
Mm.
misogyny on your part. And so I just like radically accepted in that moment that my name was Catty Wampus, and I embraced that identity, and it was so correct. You know what I mean? It was just
Uh-huh.
a beautiful, beautiful moment of like self-recognition for me.
It's so funny because that's really a parallel to Gypsy Rose Lee, where she was supposed to be Gypsy Rose Louise. And then I mean, this is all, homogenized for the musical. And the MC introduces her instead as Gypsy Rose Lee. And she just was like, that's it. Then she just goes out and does that. And then, of
Yeah.
course, she spent most of her career indicating that she was an intellectual stripper, that she knew her shit.
Yes.
Um, So I appreciate that as well. Um, it's a very movie moment. It's
Yeah.
also the dream girls for the dreamettes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, then, you said 21 was some time ago. You don't have to share with
Mhm.
me how long ago that was if you wish. But as someone who is presently myself embracing almost half a year of 42,
Yes.
I started around the same, or so I started 20 years ago. So depending on how long ago 21 is for you, I assume before times, before the pandemic and
Yes.
everything fell apart. Were you always in Chicago?
No, I got started in San Francisco actually with
Mm.
it was a queer burlesque troupe called Red Hot's Burlesque. And it's funny, I actually got started, I went on a date to a lube wrestling competition, as one does.
As you do, as one
And
must.
as one must, indeed. And the date itself didn't end up going anywhere, but I was like, "Oh, I gotta do this." And it was exclusively for queer like queer non-men.
Okay,
So it just felt like a really like safe space to be a goofball. And so I got involved in lube wrestling, and then I was such a ham about it, like I was always like grabbing chairs, you know what I mean? Like
oh
I
sure.
was like trying to make it WWE, that they said, "Hey, have you ever heard of burlesque?"
I mean, when you start picking up chairs and they start asking if you've ever heard of burlesque, that is again a pivotal moment, I would assume.
Yes, exactly. They could sense in me.
Well, I mean, WWE is sort of the burlesque of the wrestling world, right? Or of
Yes.
the what is the physical arts? I don't know what you would refer to, like the general purpose
Mm,
overdome of wrestling and its variants by athletics, I suppose.
absolutely. Right. It's not just clowning because there is a whole erotic element to it. It can't be
Yeah,
denied.
it's weird because so as I said, I'm 42, so I grew up with wrestling ending the Saturday morning cartoons run. So I remember like Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and oh God, who was the one who did the slap into a Slim Jim? Was that Savage? That may have been Savage. Um, but that's sort of like the theatricality and the neon pink and green of it all. Um, so what were some of your influences when you were realizing, oh, besides Proust, uh,
Yeah.
what what maybe not as intellectual references were you
Mhm.
pulling from?
Yeah, great question. I think that I was inspired by primarily just the performers that I was seeing in San Francisco at that time. So like it was just truly revolutionary to me. I remember the first burlesque act I ever saw today would be like it wouldn't even make an impression on me, not because it wasn't great, but just because it's like, something you see pretty often. It was
Mm,
a woman with a beautiful large butt who had uh she turned around and revealed that she had two cinnamon rolls on each of her butt cheeks. And it was like some kind of like you are what you eat type act. And it blew my mind. You know what I mean? Like
mhm,
it's so cute to me. What it took at that age. And it was
mhm.
not much. But I was getting really into pinup culture primarily through um my like a desire to accept my body. I was having a lot at that age, as many of us are. I was really struggling with my body type, which was already at plus size at that time. And so I was interested in pinup clothing because I was like, oh, like this makes me shapely. I like the fit of.
Proportions. Right.
Exactly, exactly. And seeing myself in those proportions, especially coming out of the kind of late 2000s um, styles of baby doll tops and like low-rise jeans. It's difficult. It's
Yeah,
difficult to be a fat girl in the late 2000s world.
the candy shoes of it all, and the singled out Jenny McCarthy and Carmen Electra. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God,
So
I
it's
can smell it. I can smell that. The cucumber melon and oh, what was it was some sort of sugar. It was like not cinnamon sugar. It was like a oh, I can't think of it. But sweet, super sweet.
extraordinary, exactly. So sweet, so it's just like cloying, which
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Sure.
Body
You
spray all
know,
day. Yeah.
it's an acquired moment, but a lot of it is also just sort of masking the post-puberty of it all. That's what
Yeah, right. Oh my God, the Axe body spray for at least for my era was intense. But maybe preferable. We didn't think about what the alternative was. Maybe we would have been more grateful had we thought.
well, you know, I feel what are we at now? We're at a very post-apocalyptic moment in time. So I think we're but we're also at a very self-aware time as well. I think we sort of been forced, whether it's because of the internet, whether it's because just politics has entered the chat fully. I feel like you shouldn't have, but I feel like you could have acknowledged a lot of world events. Sorry, ignored a lot of world events at a certain point, at a certain age, and now I don't think children are given that opportunity.
Oof. Yeah.
Because of the internet, because of YouTube, because of TikTok, because of just everything.
Yeah.
So a lot of our innocence has been lost.
Very true. Yeah, and
Mm,
it's the thinking about the two sides of that coin of like the innocence lost, the inability to remain a child in the way that I think we were able to,
mm,
but then also like being exposed earlier to like
mm.
like ideas from everywhere as opposed to just ideas for in my case in a high school in Mississippi, right? The ideas that were flowing there were not
So it started in Mississippi, went to San Francisco, and then
yeah,
moved on from there. So
yeah.
what was it like growing up in Mississippi? I don't know if I've ever had a burlesque entertainer say that they were from Mississippi. Tell me.
You know what's so funny, Victor, is I actually met another burlesque performer who went to my same high school in
Mm.
Mississippi.
You
Granted,
were
it wasn't
sitting
art,
next to each other for years now.
and we had no idea. One
No
day, we
idea.
both had this desire to take our clothes off in front of other people.
What was that teacher telling you?
Yeah, her name's Lilith Von Tell out of Detroit. We're both had this little stint in the southern states. Um, I think that my experience, I didn't grow up in Mississippi. I just went to high school there, and so I was
Mm.
coming in as an outsider. I actually grew up in the military, so I had a whole, you can imagine
We've
the
had quite a few military army brats on the pod. It is
that
a common situation, which I guess sort of prototypes people traveling, gives
yes,
them sort of a temporary culture, as it
yeah,
were.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of preachers' kids, a lot of military kids.
That makes complete preacher's kids. Oh, that makes complete sense because
That's me.
is that
Yeah.
you, Victor?
It is, but also a father with a lot of wanderlust, so also moving
Mm,
around a lot. So I was
yeah,
born in Connecticut, moved to New Jersey when I was young, and then he kept going.
yeah.
So yeah.
I feel like it's like you're saying like about the traveling already being in the like that already being an option that is we're familiar with. But then I'm
Yeah.
also wondering about the dynamic of just like having something to rebel against from a young age, the
Mm.
kind of conservative culture of both Christianity and military, which military and Christianity are also, so intertwined
Yep.
to to be someone who like most of us are queer, most of us are
Mm. It's that nationalism. It
yeah,
already perpetuates falling into line and doing what you're told and not
yeah,
questioning.
yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
So, that's a lot of what I found in Mississippi as well was that expectation of falling into line. And I found myself at an art school, which was, I think an oasis for so many queer children in Mississippi flocked to that school. And um, it was an interesting experience, I think, early on of feeling this kind of us versus them towards our administration who just didn't um I think we're hired more to rein us in than to give us what we needed. So there was just like a kind of built-in antagonism there that was very
Right.
familiar to me by that point, you know?
Well, that was, I'm assuming, since you're younger than I am, that was at 9/11 time as well. So there was a lot going on, uh, changing in the culture. And I was talking to Pound Cake, who's a entertainer out of Ohio, and we were comparing notes about what it was like living during the Bush administration versus now, and how there is things in common, but there was almost like a quaint, oh, he's so stupid element that
Mm.
came with Bush. And while there is inherent stupidity in our current administration, um, there's a mob boss sort of mentality because he treats it like he's a CEO who doesn't answer to anyone, which is a mob boss.
Mm.
Um, and the lightness isn't there. Like we used to channel our frustration as a culture with like email chats of showing how George W. Bush looks like a monkey. We don't, while we have memes, they're not quite as effervescent, I feel.
Yeah, and it's not like
A little
we're
bit
at
more
a
doomed, a little bit more
Uh,
doomed.
yes, exactly. It's not the release it once was to make those kind of like superficial comments.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Oof.
Well,
Yeah.
when did you realize that English and perhaps literature, creative writing, any of those things really
Yeah.
spoke to you? And which of those points did you first hit?
Yeah, so when I went to this art school for creative writing, and I studied poetry for a very long time. That was kind of my parallel career while I was doing burlesque. I was also
Mm.
studying creative writing, so I've got many degrees. Too many.
How often
Um,
do you use them?
Oh, truly never. In fact, I
Ah,
would say probably net negative
oh,
in that kind of like through that definition of success, right?
sure. Well,
For
that's the
myself,
thing.
for my
Like,
soul, I love it.
how often do you use them? Like, often I use them as placemats. Like, what's the literal
Yes.
translation of using them? Of course,
Yeah.
whatever you gained from that experience, we should be focusing on rather than the paper.
Yeah.
But did you stay within um writing as a career outside of
I
burlesque?
I recently decided to leave academia like
Mm,
2 years ago. I exited, and I actually can credit burlesque with helping me make that decision
mm,
because I had wanted to be an academic because I had this idea, and this was the idea that had been sold to me, right? That there was a way for me to be a working artist. And it's if I could exist in academia, be a teacher, be funded to write, etc. And what I found was just that pressure for myself was
mm,
so creatively stifling that I had not written a word in years by the time I made the decision to leave. And I think it was seeing how natural burlesque was for me, that was a space where creativity felt only joyful, where it was something that I wanted to do for myself, regardless of what I was getting in return for it. That made me realize like, oh, poetry does not feel that way anymore. I
mm,
know what this feels like because of burlesque, and something is not right here. And I really I appreciate having that kind of point of comparison
mm,
for what creativity could be and could feel like, and what it could do for me. Which I truly, if I'm being honest with myself, I don't think that poetry felt that way since I was in high school. Like that was the last
mm,
time that it actually felt that kind of like this is serving myself primarily, and my audience is kind of like the joyful recipient of what is primarily for me.
Hmm.
I had been writing for other people for my career, for money. I had been doing that for such a long time that I forgot what I forgot that it could feel good, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of as it's viewed, I would say poetry specifically is sort of viewed as lonely. I mean, what's the the quintessential Emily Dickinson, Sylvia Plath sort of, even if you get, I mean, even someone like I mean he also worked in prose, but Edgar Allan Poe or people that are sort of viewed as like these intellectual poetic individuals, there is a loneliness and a solitariness.
Hmm.
And yet, I mean, the people that I just mentioned published and tried to publish and wanted to publish and share their information. Technically, you can be a poet who does not share with the world. You can just use it for yourself. And theatricality doesn't really lend itself to that. You kind of have to also be an entertainer. You can be
Yeah.
a performance artist, but even that, technically, you're doing for people that you're looking for a reaction from. You're looking for feedback, good or bad.
Hmm.
Uh, so I always say that burlesque is one of those intersections between, you know, entertainment and art. So as you've brought in more of the physicality, what do you think that you learned from yourself that you did not necessarily engage with, and with the exception of lube wrestling, uh, that, you know, said, oh, I have to use these other attributes. It's not just about my brain. It's not just about meter.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think, the when I started to feel, it took me a long time to perform as a solo artist.
Okay.
I spent a long time as a stage kitten. I spent a
Uh,
long time as a door person, helping out in the background. I in San Francisco at that time, there just wasn't much of an on-ramp for new performers. This would have been in like 2015. Uh,
hmm.
so it's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
Um, so there wasn't much of an on-ramp for new performers, and I didn't come in with any theatrical skills, right? I was one of those people who had never been a dancer, never been into theater, I had never engaged in those kind of performance skills. So it was tough for me to see who I could be. Took me a
Mm,
long time. But I think that once I did take that plunge, what I felt so deeply was that audience connection. And when I went back to the poetry world, which I was like living in simultaneously, I started to hate poetry readings with every fiber of my being. I could not stand being at a poetry reading. Um,
mm,
and I even started to dislike myself and who I was when I was reading, because I felt this like not only a lack of connection, like a lack of being an entertainer, right? A lack of there being that impulse on the poet's side to be like, I need to work to make this interesting. I need to work to communicate this. It
To
was
connect with an
very,
audience. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
like there was like a wall there that they wanted to be there in a certain way. Um, because I think that a lot of the poetry world is focused more on distance than it is on connection in some ways.
Mm.
Certainly not
Uh,
universal, but
Emphasis on the self of self-expression.
correct. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And it's like you can either get it or you don't. And
Right.
if you don't get it, it's probably because you haven't read enough. You know what I like?
You
It
you
just,
can't take universality for granted. You
yes,
can't. You can't say, well, everyone knows what love is. You can't say that everyone knows what pain is. I'm like, you have to engage with these connective tissues. Yeah, I get you.
absolutely.
I get you.
Absolutely. So I started wanting to bring that kind of burlesque connection into poetry, and I was getting more experimental about it. I was like, can I do poetry as a striptease? Like, how can I make this more performance art oriented? And I think
Hmm.
that's where eventually my worlds kind of converged, and I realized like, oh, like I want to be in front of an audience that um try like wants me to take them somewhere. And I felt that in these kind of like more cemented academic spaces, that
Mm.
they didn't really want me to take them anywhere, you know?
Mm.
And that was, I think, what made me kind of like want to see, okay, I love being a freaking goofball. I love being stupid on stage. I
Hmm.
love just being ridiculous. Those are things that I love, but I'm also kind of in a time of like wanting to explore what else can I bring to burlesque? Can I bring poetry to burlesque? What would that look like? How can I make it something that people actually want to engage with, that doesn't feel like I'm trying to push them away or create distance, but something that like lets them into the kind of like more language side of my brain. And I just
Mm.
feel so much more free and excited thinking about bringing poetry to burlesque audiences
Hmm.
than I ever did trying to bring burlesque to poetry audiences.
Have you ever danced or done burlesque, whatever that ends up meaning to you, to a spoken word?
I have. Yes. Yeah, I did. I had the opportunity to, this was a while ago. Someone had, jazz musicians had this cool idea that they wanted poets to read their work as jazz musicians were improvising in the background.
Hmm.
And it really, I mean, my goodness, like, and I decided to show up in my full burlesque gear, because I was in that state of like, I want these things to come together. I want them to live together. And the energy and the rhythm, like it really created something special. So recently I took the audio from that poem read over improvised jazz music, and I did a burlesque act to that recording.
Uh-huh.
And I thought it was really cool. Like not something I would necessarily do again in that state, but it just I'm following that possibility. I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting. I want to keep thinking about what that could maybe be and do."
The beat poke of burlesque. I think it's possible. Absolutely. Why not? Why not? Snaps, snaps, snaps.
Thank you.
Um, well, I have to say, so I think I said this when we were together at the RDA Burlesque Festival,
Yeah.
that you were also just so pretty on stage as well. Your makeup and your styling, there's just something that you know the planes of your face, you
Mm,
know how to style yourself in a really gorgeous, flattering way.
mm.
And as you engage in the intersections of marginalized individuals, which is larger bodies, which is queerness, which any other qualities that I may not be aware of, um, we sort of are become the self-insert for a lot of audience members. I find that audiences get really excited when they see people who look like them or that represent people that they know in the world, as opposed to that unattainable. The
Mm.
unattainable is fun, and the unattainable is great, but it's really hard to sit through 30 minutes to an hour and a half of unattainable.
Yeah. Yep.
So as you're exploring that connective tissue with an audience, how have you learned, or what do you appreciate more than the poet side, which seemed a little bit more, self-reflective, to
Yes.
engage with others? What have you learned about an audience from that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I think that has following like audience response has been so critical for me as a performer. And you're right that it's a completely different instinct
Mhm.
than creative writing. I love that, like the self part of self-expression versus like what am I creating with someone else, right? Having it be,
Sure. I mean,
yeah,
and there are still burlesque
true,
performers who are more
true.
involved in the self part, and that's
True,
okay too,
absolutely. So I guess I
to a
would say for
point.
myself, I'm very interested in that collaboration, being in the moment.
Sure.
And I think that two times that have really been a big deal for me, um, is just realizing how impactful it is and how much I want to be brave for people who look like me. It's like fat people do not like being told you're so brave, right? Like that is like one of those comments that is just like, what do you mean by that?
Hmm.
However, at the same time, two things can be true,
Yeah.
right? I think at the same time, it did feel extremely
Yes.
brave to me to get to the point where I was wearing tiny underwear. I was wearing underwear that was underneath my like between my belly and my fupa, right in there in that little cradle, and all of my belly fat was out. Like that was brave for me to do that. It was on display,
Right. On
exactly. And I
display.
think
Yeah.
when I got to the point where I could grab my belly fat, when I could shake it, when I could be
Mm.
confrontational with it, call attention to it, that was such a turning point for me as a performer. And it's when I felt like a ravenousness from the audience, like a new level of excitement
Yeah.
for me. And I see you doing that too on stage, Viktor. I love those moments of just like reveling in it is yeah, yeah.
Hey, this is Victor Devon, and I like socks. I've always been very open about my appreciation for the fabric that goes on my feet, and I want you to enjoy them too. Please go to footclothes.com, look at the variety of fabulous novelty socks that do not suck, and indulge. You can get 10% off now with the name Victor Devon as a promo code. That's VIKTORDEVONNE. Put it all together, no spaces, and enjoy.
Tonight on Murder, She Wrote.
Hooray!
Hey.
Yeah.
It's kind of Piper Laurie and Brenda Vaccaro at A Love Child.
Thank goodness.
I want to know
These
her.
nails. Yeah, where's her series? That's what
She's
I want.
fabulous.
The son is Joaquin Phoenix.
I know, isn't that nuts? And he is an ugly little kid. I'm sorry.
We're just like, hey, remember when this guy was in this obscure Broadway show in 1976?
Right? Look at him in those tight pants. Yum.
Well, because there's not
But
a
we
lot
do
really
get-
going on. It's
Yeah.
supposed I mean, unless you're listening to the dialogue, which frankly, audience at home, you can do without us. We're just
Yeah, do
learning
your own
about
work,
some of these
damn it.
backstory. But
Right.
Boswell put her up to it.
Yeah.
And then Trish had to be killed because she realized that Boswell didn't have her interests at heart because Teddy was the inheritor.
Yeah.
Playing her like a fiddle.
Oswald knew it, and Trish just gulped it down like one of those martinis.
And then tossed it onto the in-law.
And then lost her head. Poor Trish.
Trish loses her head. This is Victor Devon.
And this is Petra Fried.
And this is Tonight
on Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because again, I think there was I remember an entertainer, and I won't name them. Not that I'm going to call them out, but I don't have permission to name them. Where as a producer, and you've experienced this, where somebody will send you a list of what their acts are and sort of give you a little summation of it. And one of them was, this is a body positive number to this sort of pseudo rockabilly jazz song, and this is like body positive. I know this act. What inherently makes this a body? But oh, she squishes her belly and shakes it. True. Okay. All right. All right. I guess that. Yeah. I guess that. Okay. Sure. And I had to sort of take into account, like, well, I do that, and I realized that I do that. I was at that point doing it at specific shows where I felt that would be received well or what have you. Like, you sort of read the room and say, what is this audience going to like? If they seem to like feet, give them some feet. Like, do what you do. And or depending on the actor, depending on, what the vibe is. And I was just like, well, I'm just going to do that if I feel the move, because I want the audience to feel that that's okay too, no matter, even if they weren't expecting, even if they weren't like bringing that in. And there is a revelatory feeling about that, because it does sort of say, yeah, here you go. This is me. This is the flesh, and you should be just as excited as the middle part of me as you are about
Yes.
top and bottom.
Bring back the belly.
Yeah.
It's what I want. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's just sort of it's working with what you have. And a lot of times, I mean, Jezebel Express talks about this a lot too, where it's sort of Unpuck the Plenty, where it's sort of a body neutrality as well, where it's just, but the thing is also there, in my view, there isn't a whole lot
Mm.
of room for neutrality in burlesque. There is off stage. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But on stage, you kind of have to
Mm.
serve the audience like you're a buffet, and that everyone, you may not go to every piece. If you don't like drumsticks, you might not look at the legs. If you're not interested in this, you might not get that. And as a ostensibly a guy in burlesque, I have worked for a lot of audiences where
Mm.
I was not necessarily everyone's first choice.
Hmm.
But you know what? They had a taste. You
Absolutely.
gotta give
Yeah,
them the
I think
option. You
that's a
gotta give
really
them an
interesting
option.
comment about like that you were like, what's body positive about that? Because like you had already kind
Mm,
of reached a point of yourself as a performer where you're like, right, that's just what I do because that's what I got.
sure.
I got it. That's what I have to serve, and
That's what I
I've been
have.
serving it.
Yeah.
That's and I could see that it's like I'd never thought about this before, but I feel like burlesque itself, some people would be like, "Oh, that is so like that's so controversial," or that burlesque is inherently body positive because you're taking your clothes off. And I think most burlesque performers would be like, "Well,
It's like, no, not really. Well, because we're
mm,
also looking from a business side as well.
mm,
And the calls are coming from inside our own house. So we're dealing with whatever shit that we have as well. Um, to a degree that we can, I guess, kind of compare it to a bit of Hollywood or the sort of movie magic where everything there looks perfect, but there also are a bunch of tabloids talking about how thin or how fat people are, or what they look like, or how they dared age, or how they don't look like they've
oof,
aged. So therefore, let's comment on that. And while that certainly has always been rooted in misogyny, to
mm."
everyone's fair game now, which is a really weird. Like we just had a whole conversation about Jim Carrey's face the last week, which has been a fascinating sort of display of
Mm.
priorities. We've also just bombed Iran, but we're worrying about, Jim Carrey's face. Um, which I understand the knee jerk to do that because that's actually a little bit, it's fucked up, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit more light than bombing
Yeah,
Iran. So
absolutely. Yeah, and
yeah.
it's like what that's true too. Like what conversations are we avoiding when we're kind of like recycling the same um like topics that are more light, more like everyone kind of like has an
Mhm.
opinion that doesn't feel too heated. It feels easy to express. You have that kind of sense of self-righteousness. I think it's worth thinking about that. Yeah.
We certainly do. We certainly do. And well, and also in the burlesque microcosm as well, we do as well, because we are our own agents, we are our own choreographers, we're our own frequently our own costume makers, we are our own producers. The Venn diagram of producer and performer is much more united
Yeah.
than it has been in the past. Usually it was run, by
Yep.
a bunch of white guys in suits. And people are making their own spaces. And as someone who has produced in, I think, as many as possibly
Cool.
3 to 4 states, right?
Yeah, true.
You've worked quite a lot.
Mm.
What kind of shows do you enjoy curating as someone who gets to then say, "This is other
Yes,
people's art. Here's what I'm
absolutely.
inviting
So
in."
my primary production venture has been a show called Body Body Haha in Eastern Iowa. Like I live in Chicago, right? Like I originally moved to Iowa for grad school. That's when I started it. So I did live there when I started it. but the majority of the time I've been running the show, I have not lived in the state of Iowa. And this has confused a lot of people, which I get it, I understand. But the reason that I continue to produce there, multiple reasons, of course, like just like being able to have access to a big theater show is an asset in the Midwest. Like in
Mm.
Chicago, it is difficult to have a big theater show because it's just so expensive. So I feel like it's something I can offer the whole area, just the opportunity to come. Um,
Hmm.
Also, I'm the only burlesque show in Eastern Iowa. So they are hungry for it. You know what I mean? I have this audience that I have a monopoly on their
Hmm.
attention. These are sellout shows, and I can guarantee the people who come out, I'm like, you are going to have a good time because this energy from this audience is unparalleled, right? Um, and the other reason that I still
Mm.
do it in Iowa is because Iowa is a conservative state that has so many queer and trans people, so many sex workers who do not get to see themselves as often, especially in person, right? Like, because it's one thing to have connection to online community. We all know as, queer people, what a game changer the internet was for us to be able to connect with people like us. But it's not the
Hmm.
same thing as being able to see someone, like you were saying, seeing someone like you on stage is such a transformative experience. So
Hmm.
so
And seeing people
true,
not like you
absolutely. And I
on
think
stage
that's a
too.
big part of
Yeah.
it as well.
Yeah.
So I actually just on Saturday
Yeah.
had we did a kink theme show. It was very fun. Um, and I start each one of my shows with a speech because um it feels bad
Hmm.
to not acknowledge everything that's going on. If I'm having all of these, if I'm really serious about having performers of color come to my show, if I'm really serious about having gender nonconforming people on my stage, etc., to not acknowledge what they are facing feels like I am doing them a disservice. To just ask them to perform for me, but not take my this opportunity, right, to talk about it. And
Right. Sure.
I love that I can say to my audience, you're at a burlesque show, and burlesque teaches us a lot about how to create the world that we want to see. This is an opportunity for you to celebrate marginalized bodies, that this is an opportunity for you to understand someone is doing whatever the fuck they want to do, and that they get to do that, and that as
Yeah.
long as it's not hurting another person, they can do whatever it is, and you don't have to accept it, you don't have to like it, but like you can acknowledge that is it's happening
It's
exactly,
happening.
it's
It's happening.
happening. And like you were saying, like if you're uncomfortable with seeing like a man or a masculine person taking their clothes off or something like that, right? Something that maybe is a new a new thing you're
Sure.
being exposed to.
Well, I mean, people
Yes.
of different sizes, people of different
All
disabilities,
different types, exactly.
all
That
different
you
types of
can
stuff. Yeah.
practice that kind of tolerance of this is happening, and just like that, consent is something that goes both ways, right? Like you don't touch the performers, and also they're not
Mm.
going to touch you if you use this like certain X symbol, right? And so I love it as kind of like
Yeah.
I love to propose a burlesque show as like a microcosm for all these kinds of rules, that if we rules and in like ways of thinking and approaching, that if we applied these to the wider world, we would not have many of these problems that we currently have. Yeah, so it's just my little thought
Yeah.
experiment that I have everyone do before we get into it. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Well, you have
Anita, do you?
a co-producer,
Mm-hmm.
yes?
Yep.
Anita is your co-producer? And I've also seen you do a number of duets. I know
Yes.
you've worked with Perpetua,
Matador,
Gold,
absolutely.
and Matador. Um, why do you feel that you are so
Mm. I think
open
I
to
do my best
collaboration?
work in collaboration. I love my solo stuff. I love to have fun on my own, but there's something about like um my dear Matador, he would not mind me saying he's someone who has so much performance anxiety, And something that we talk about together is for
Mm,
some reason when you're performing a duet, there's this feeling of I might fuck up, but at least Matt's got it. I know I have full trust that Matt is gonna fucking kill
yeah.
this. And so there's like just less pressure on myself. So I think that that's a really beautiful thing about duets is just like when you have that such an admiration for the person you're working with that it just takes some pressure off of you
Mm,
and it allows I think me to access a more just like kind of free joyful state when I'm performing than sometimes when I'm doing it solo and
mm.
also just feeling like I want to do I want to do so well because I love this other person so much so that I think that that's what brings out the best in me from it. Is I just love them, man. I want to be good for them. Yes, yes.
You bring a zest. You bring a zest to it. Yeah. Well, that is the thing, isn't it? You need to have perfect trust. We see this in
Mm,
hell, figure skating. We see this
yes.
in any partner work. If you don't get along or can't get past whatever baggage is backstage or whatever is going on, um, we hear about fabulous collaborators who had a lot of tension backstage, who did not necessarily get along on everything, but when it's creative, it works. I mean, hell, the Eurythmics used to date, but they
Ooh.
didn't make great music until they broke up. That kind of thing. Like you need that sort of learning about somebody, and sometimes it's
Mhm.
most useful when it's platonic actually. And then you also in burlesque we have a lot of um partners who are like
Yeah.
Samsonite and Margo Mayhem or Ivory Fox and Medianoche. Like we have
Yeah.
power couples as well, that also show that romanticism and intimacy can also work. And I'm a very much of a as long as the love shall last kind of person. And I started with a producer with White Elephant, and circumstances what they were,
Mm.
um, I don't now. And so, but I find that producers still thrive under a concept of collaboration, even if it's just the night of with their kittens, with their audience, with their, you have to have that back and forth. Otherwise, it is just reading a poem
Yep.
to
Yes,
yourself
right,
in
exactly.
spite of
Like
an
in spite
audience.
of versus it being for or even better, like created with, right? Created because yeah,
You
yeah,
got to get them to clap that you're supposed to make them happy. You want them to also
yes.
enjoy
Yeah, I
themselves.
think,
Yeah.
if I was going to point to
Yeah.
something that makes me a successful producer, I think it is 10,000%. I mean, there's a lot of things, but the main thing is my ability to bring together a team of people who can execute the show. It is not me doing it by myself by any stretch of the imagination. I think my primary role is to make the show something that people want to be a part of. I've created all of these like systems of how to bring
Mm.
people in. We're a huge community. So Body Body Haha brings in guest performers, but we have like over 100 people who are involved at various times. They come and they go, but we've got 100 people to draw from, and 40 people are involved in the show at any time. Like that's really why it's such a good show, is I've got so many people who are invested. It's all these individual desires for the show to be good coming together and making it so. My individual will cannot make that happen, unfortunately.
Well, and Anita
Proper,
is in
correct.
Iowa proper, right? So even though you're coming in, you still have
Yes.
somebody who's locally based, regionally sourced, who can answer any specific
Hmm.
stuff. How does one,
Yeah.
even though they have a co-producer on site, so to speak,
Great
how does one
question.
produce out of state?
I think, so, Chicago, you have just this absolute wealth of performers, like in like just incredible
Yes.
performers everywhere you go, left and right, and they're being created every day. There's all these different paths for them to be created in the city. That's the beautiful thing.
Right. Well, because those
Exactly.
fabulous performers are also
Exactly. So
mentors
that's
too.
just like
So they're helping
something that's
create.
already
Yeah.
happening in Iowa, in these kind of like smaller places. That is just not the case, right? Often, and I mean, I did this myself, right? Like performers will move to a bigger city to have those more frequent performance opportunities. It's a move you have to make for your career in a lot of ways. But then there's not that same kind of like system of development in place in these smaller areas that are so deserving of it. And I think that it it's something that is important to me, that I continue investing in that community that made me, uh who started me off. So I think, something that's important to me and Anita, and something that Anita is taking care of. I kind of am a little bit more of like a creative director or like executive director at this point. Um,
Sure.
and something that Anita puts a lot of energy into is having those performance opportunities for our local performers who maybe aren't going to be in our big show immediately, right? It's something that they have to work towards to be in that larger show. And I think that system works really well to give them a space where we just want to give you stage time, go be fabulous. We're at our local gay bars having these shows every other month. But then also give them something to work towards. I think that a lot of small communities are running on the troop system. There's a lot to say about burlesque troops. But something that I've noticed about burlesque troop systems is often there's like a guaranteed performance slot, like the shows that they have. Let's say it's like a monthly show, and it will be every performer has a guaranteed spot in that show, and then they're bringing in maybe one
Right.
outside performer who's the headliner. Nothing.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're the
Nothing
residency.
wrong with
Yeah.
that inherently, but I think that what it does is just kind of like makes it so that what are you working towards, right? If that's the only system that's in your community is that there's a monthly show and you know that you're going to get to perform in it. Like what's the incentive? What are you growing towards? And so I think that something that's actually really benefited my community in Iowa is having something that they're not guaranteed to be in, that they have to audition for, that they're not going to be a part of every month. That is, they have to pitch an idea. They have to um, have a certain number of videos that they're submitting. Like we have a whole system in place of accountability and of encouraging growth. We give feedback every month. Like that aspect of it is really important to me. And I mean, my local performers fucking kill it. Like the evidence is there that is actually a healthy thing to do, for a system that doesn't automatically have those, like in Chicago, right? There's those professional performance slots that of course everyone is trying to up their game in order to get. If that's not there, I think it's like it's just harder to get that motivation to improve.
Well, it
Yeah.
combats entitlement, certainly, which goes hand in hand with being an artist who is
Ooh.
learning to perform for other people, because there is that need sometimes. There is that like that quality within you to throw as much as you can against the wall to make it stick and feel very self-important because um this is you deserve to also be heard. And yes, you do. But there's only so many stages and not everyone is actually good. Um I think that's a really hard thing for people to work with. And unfortunately, there are so many people who are very, very good who don't get opportunities. So it's not even a litmus test to say, oh, well, if you're not working,
Right.
then you must not be good.
Right.
No, that's not the case. It's just not. Um, there's no through line in terms,
Mm.
there's no hint that that's the system. And so providing these stages, of course, then gives people that chance to hone and also realize maybe this is not for me too. It also does give people an out to a certain degree because it gives them the chance to play. And you can't know if you're actually going to enjoy yourself
True.
unless you
Absolutely.
play, I feel. So, and I find that a lot of burlesque performers either work for like
Mm,
2 years and then or forever. Like those are like that because you burn the fuck out in 2 years, or you don't get
yeah.
the work and therefore you get bitter and you quit, or you just keep going for the rest of your life
So,
because
so
it
true.
stuck.
Absolutely. And
Like it
I
really.
credit, I truly think for myself that the number one thing that has led to whatever success I have is just that I did not give up.
Mm.
Which is such a cliche, right? But it's not true for every single performer. I see performers who've only been performing for a couple of years who, because they're coming in with this other
Sure.
performance experience, automatically are getting to stages that I have been working towards for a really long time and have not gotten there yet, right? So I understand that feeling, right? Of just like it's never
Yeah.
gonna happen for me, like, oh, this person has only been like all of that kind of inner talk.
It's hard to
It
train
is.
people and
It's
have
hard.
them get the
It's
promotion.
hard.
It is.
But to
It
be
is.
to
But
be dogged, you know what I mean? This is a really
yeah.
undervalued quality, I think, is to just stick with it no matter what. And
Uh,
I can point to that in every level of the things that I have right now that I love. It is just my
mm,
commitment to continue making the space. And that goes for Body Body Haha. I've been running that for 6 years. There were times, I mean, we went through the pandemic. We went through, right, so many things. We have met every single Sunday for years and years and years. Even when it's
mm,
just me and two other people, I still show up. And actually, I've like let that go a little bit recently, but I credit that. I credit having every single Sunday be our meeting time with the reason that Body still exists. And I run like a little feedback group, and it's been going for 2 years now because every last Wednesday of the month, I'm showing up, even if no one else does, I'm there. And for myself, for my own performance career, I just keep showing up for myself, and it has required, because again, I came in with nothing. I came into burlesque with no performance experience at all. I was so inflexible, I could not
mm,
even straighten my legs. Like I was starting from a relationship with my body where I was so opposed to exercise and movement because that had been so poisoned by the people in my life who had told me that my body was wrong and that I was not doing enough to fix that problem, right? All of that was such a poisoned well that my growth has been extremely slow, right? Like I started at 21. I didn't perform until I was 25. And I'm now turning 34 this year. So that has been it's almost a decade. Yes, yes, I'm
I knew
34.
we'd get there eventually. But it was a special treat
The
for people who've stayed with
reveal,
us this long. Excellent.
the tease.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think like uh believing that what the things that I saw that I had that I had to cling to these tiny moments of responsiveness from my audience, as I had no costume skills, I had no dance skills, I had no, right? Like I had none of these things, but yet I saw that there was something that I was doing that was getting a response from the audience, which is like I've realized that I'm just fun. I'm just fun to watch. I'm unpredictable.
Mm,
I deliver the energy. I have this like intensity that I think people are captivated by. I'm unafraid to confront people. Like there those aspects that cannot be, I think, fully encompassed by like a theatrical background or a dance background, right? Like these things that are just kind of like almost like burlesque specific in some ways, like getting to engage
Mhm.
with the fourth wall or blow it to smithereens as it were that we get to do in burlesque, that I was good at that thing in particular. And I think that believing that that
Uh-huh.
was enough is what has sustained me for so long, that I was able to invest in those other aspects of myself and like become a dancer and become flexible and be able to do some of those flashy things that I think have like now gotten me on those stages that I coveted for a decade, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit
Mm.
about the glamour, how you approach that and why it is how it has fulfilled you? Because again, going from the solitary sort of what's the poet?
Yes.
Look, everyone is in black with a beret.
Yes.
To go from that to something really
Yeah.
flashy and stunning, particularly when you have all these other intersections to play with.
It's such a good
Why is
question,
that
and
important to
like,
you?
in some ways it's like that is there's something shallow about it, right? About glamour. There's something, right? It
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
we deserve to be shallow, exactly.
We deserve to be
And
shallow
I think
too.
that like from this like serious artist perspective, like an investment in glamour can feel like it doesn't matter, and it can be difficult to like justify outside of our little world, right? Um, but I think that, the first moment that I had with burlesque, where I was just like, holy shit, I need to do this. I was it was a release of the Betty Page documentary that they, like I had said, I was into pinup culture at the time. Yeah. And they had a burlesque performance
Sure, sure, sure.
before the
Yeah, yeah.
documentary, and it was this fat woman dressed as a pig. And this glamorous, beautiful pig. And I was just like, how can she be doing this? Like, that's the thing that they say to you to make you feel bad. How is she being glamorous and a
Ah,
pig at the same time? And I thought about it for so long afterwards, like it really struck something in me. And I think that it's that kind of like reclamation that was so powerful. And it was like it's simple, right? In some ways, burlesque is very simple. It is very transparent. It's like you are on stage revealing your body. Your body is what it is. Right? You're just exposing something that is inherently, there's not
yep.
like I'm not trying to come up with a complicated image. It's like this is my boobs. You know what I mean? But I think that what I discovered in that moment is that in fact that simplicity was so powerful, and the vulnerability and that goes into the decision making, that like I'm going to do that, was so powerful, that burlesque has ended up being the revolutionary force in my life. As much as I thought poetry was going to do that, in fact, it has been burlesque, it has been glamour, it has been this um, very kind of like cheeky, complicated relationship that I have with high femininity. Um, I've used it as a way
Mhm.
to work through a lot of issues that I've had, like being someone who's always been femme for femme, for example, and always finding in my own life that I've been rejected by other femme women who just don't see me as like a viable romantic partner. It has been powerful for me to be as high feminine, as engaged in femininity, just absolutely dripping in it as I want to be, and to feel the female lust coming at me. It has soothed so many wounds for me as a queer woman to feel that way. So I think it's like, sure, if you want to be dismissive, like I was saying, at the very beginning of my journey, when I really wanted to have a name that would indicate to people there's more going on here than meets the eye, right? And then I realized if people are
Mhm.
dismissing me, that's their fucking problem. I now feel that way about burlesque as an art form in general.
Mhm.
Like some people are dismissive of it. But that is just indicating their own lack, their own biases. And I think that people who are able to engage with burlesque on its own terms immediately feel the strength and power of that kind of in your face message. And I just love it. Yeah.
Hey, this is Viktor Devon, and I would really like to thank the Patreon people. So thank you, Patreon people. You make my dreams come true. Stormageddon, Bo, Alex, Joyce, Sebastian, Oliver, Curly Bright, Shinny, Tiffany, Faye, Oxy, Lucy Gander, Luna, Charlotte, Dottie, Clara, and Courtney. Goodness gracious. Thank you so much. I don't know, frankly, what else to do with the Patreon. So if you tell me things that you would like to see on it, whether it's just me talking, if it's some exclusives, if it's chatter of some variety, I would be absolutely delighted to contend with that. It just needs to be digested. So you can find me at WEBurlesque@gmail.com, and you can let me know, or you can comment on the Patreon itself. Y'all are great, and I love you. And thanks for spending money on me.
It is interesting because as artists, as you know, there is a pretentiousness about it, certainly. And I mean, what do I do? I created a podcast where all we do is talk about what we do. Because that's what I was doing already. Like, that was the thing, is that I found myself having conversations, and I'm a bit of an archivist. One of the things I like least about theater is how ephemeral it is, that I can't replay it in my head. I wish if I had a the ability to take on a regular human superpower, not like a fiction, not like a magical, photographic memory would be high on that list. I would also love to be able to play any instrument I picked up, but that actually sounds more complicated. I also would love to speak more languages, but that's the thing, is that you're either born with a photographic memory or you're not. And that is something that I was like, if only. And I know that there's pain that can come with that too. Sure. But I would try to involve myself only in the good stuff. So that's the thing, is that I wanted to make sure I captured these conversations. And because we do have so many things in common and yet so many variances in our stories, I talked about this at the Silver Tusk Awards, there was this need that all of us have that I felt was worthy of addressing, to couch what we're doing with, and I know the world's on fire. And I know that it seems like we're doing something really frivolous, or we deserve joy too. Joy is resistance. And I'm like, there's a certain fatigue that I'm experiencing in justifying what we do in a time of crisis.
Yeah.
And we all do it. We all do it across the board, whether it's a show that acknowledges people for coming out because the world's on fire, or it's sort of like we make ourselves just feel a little bit small so that we get permission from other people to say, no, it's important. We have to basically victimize ourselves to a certain degree so that we can get that justification from others. And I'm trying to be done with it. I'm trying very hard to be done with starting every sentence about why I love what I do with knowing and acknowledging that the world is on fire. I don't know when the world will stop being on fire, but I think it's time, not that we just take that as a given, but that we stop trying to justify what we do as a distraction or as resistance or as what have you. Because that doesn't actually help in my feeling. It doesn't make us good. It doesn't make any of us feel better, I think. It may make us feel emboldened and certainly sort of self-righteous, sure. But I think it also then removes some of our responsibility to also then do activism and advocacy off stage. Use what we have. And I've seen you also, you are an activist as well. I've seen that you've done shows that have both acknowledged struggles that you are highlighting. And I think that that's very, very important that we have to do all of these things. But when it's, just us taking off our clothes and enjoying ourselves, I'm kind of done saying, in spite of it all, I'm trying to be done. I'm not there yet because I'm still talking about it, but I'm trying.
I think that's
And
right.
I'm
And I
manifesting
think
that.
it's worth thinking about, like, what narrative is making us feel that way? You know what I mean? And where does it come from? And what is it trying to do? What is that narrative actually trying to accomplish, right? Because there are all sorts of people in the world who need to fucking stop what they're motherfucking doing, right? I am not one of those people. I am not contributing to harm in this world. I am, right? Like, even if we take out those kind of like explicit moments of activism, like, I'm an artist. I'm expressing myself. I'm a lot of people have made some really valid points recently about this idea of burlesque being inherently political, right? That they're not satisfied with burlesque is inherently political, which feels similar to the like body positivity conversation of like, is burlesque inherently body positive? Right, exactly.
Loops.
And I think it's like more than one thing can be true at once. Like, I think that burlesque is inherently political because it is not something that is universally accepted for people in general to take off their clothes. Certainly not people of marginalized genders to take off their clothes. Certainly, right? It goes on and on and on. Absolutely.
All different kinds of things.
Yes.
Yeah. The body itself has been politicized. So it's not necessarily that the act is inherently political, but because we've been weaponized as what we are, that's what that it's become. And sometimes it's even more exciting to see just fits of fashion and beauty and excitement and theater and dramatics and all of that than have somebody, lift up a sign that says words that we already agree
and
with.
I like in terms of making burlesque political as like something that you want to push into more. I think that's a beautiful thing to want to do. I think that's really fascinating. It's something that when I see someone like Foxy Lexi Brown doing her strange fruit to jungle, I don't remember what the song is, but you know what I'm talking about. That act is such a phenomenal example of politicized, like something that's pushed further into being political burlesque. It does not have any sign that's being held up that says she is her fucking
She's
sign.
her own
Absolutely.
sign.
It is, and it goes back to the things that make up burlesque, right? Signage, words, you can have that is part of burlesque, but that's not we've all done it. We've all done it.
We've all done it. We've all done it. We've all written words on our
been there,
bodies.
done that. Absolutely. You can totally do it. It's not off limits, but that's not one of the like foundational components, right? Foundational components, it's striptease, it's the revealing of our body, and it's a relationship with our body and music, our body and costuming, our body and choreography. Like, those are the kind of foundational elements of what comprises burlesque. And so that act from Foxy Lexi Brown, I think, is an incredible example of it is just through her song choice, through her costuming, through her movements, that she is able to make this statement about what it is to celebrate Blackness, to celebrate Black femininity, exactly, to acknowledge the darkness and the light. Like, it gives me goosebumps to think about that act. And so it's like, I think that we can think about like, how do we maybe want to like push burlesque into a space that is, if that feels right to you, right? To use it to push into those kind of like deeper messaging. I think that's like a beautiful thing to think about. But do we need to be like making a paper mache model of Donald Trump's head and like fucking it on stage? Is that like, is that doing there's a time and a place. Yeah.
There's a time and a place. I personally
Yeah.
don't need more examples of him personally. That's sort of my vibe. There was a time when, because my show in New York was during his first administration. So I had a show the day after election day. We were on Wednesdays. So I was, you know, a place where people went
Yeah.
to trauma dump. But off stage. On stage, I was like, you know what? And there was an influx, and there's some people who do really great jobs. Like TZ Roosevelt is a fucking genius when it comes to taking down Trump on a personal level, because they transform into them and show the cartoonish side. They become a political cartoon.
Absolutely.
Satire that's good, still cool with. But there's a certain point where Lexi is a fantastic example where that act is not for either one of us, but we're invited to be there because we happen to be there, and she's not. She wants us to enjoy it, but it's not for us. And a lot of us, I think we have to sort of deconstruct about who is this for? What are we doing this for? What is our intent? What is our goal? Is it just to make us feel better?
Yes,
That's
right,
okay
exactly.
too, but that's limiting. And that gets back to, journaling. Then just go back and
and if
journal.
it's a
If it's
decision,
just for
like,
you, then journal.
art that's made out of fear, art that's made out of insecurity, art that's made in response to this idea that, oh, what I'm doing is not enough, and someone's going to call me out, right? Someone's going to call me out for making something that is just fun, is just something that I want to do. Like, I think that if you're creating art that's just in response to not wanting someone to um, say something negative to you, that's when we get in that space of like watching burlesque that feels kind of inauthentic to me, or you know what I mean? And it's like, who's
Yes.
calling?
Yes. I can tell when people are actually traumatized and working through it, and when people are saying this is what I'm supposed to be saying because we're all going through things. So I'm like, is this actually even your story? Is this actually even, like, I know you want to be booked. I know political burlesque is hot on occasion, but is this even something that you have a message behind
Right.
that the audience doesn't already know?
Yeah.
I mean, solidarity is great. Don't get me wrong. Show people that you're good and good, and there's times and a place, and especially in a show where that's
Yeah.
not everywhere.
Absolutely.
Sure. Sure. Because to me, the mark of a great show is that we all look
Yeah.
like we're in different shows.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. Even if it's a theme show, like even if the theme is like Valentine's Day, if we all look like we're all doing different
That's a great
things
show.
with love,
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, and I think it's like we're
All
saying,
for
like,
it.
it's not that I don't like anything that has the sign held up, or right. If that's meaningful to you, it feels like it's expressing something real,
Oh,
wonderful. But it's
yeah.
like, where is that messaging of if you are not directly engaging with what's going on, that you should be quiet, that you should
Right.
sit down. It's like, where is that actually coming from?
Right.
And is it not more radical for us to say, fuck you, art is good. It is me expressing myself. It's me connecting with these other people, creating this ephemeral moment of community, creating an opportunity for us to come together rather than just being on the internet. Like, there are so many, like what I was saying about create, like, reminding people about consent culture and having tolerance for things that you don't want to see. Like, there are so many positive benefits of holding space for something like a burlesque show, that I think that in some ways, the more politically relevant response is not to put aside what you really want to be doing in order to hold up a sign because you're afraid of getting a response, but instead to say that is infighting. You need to put that energy towards something where it actually is addressing something that's creating harm in this world. I'm an artist creating my art. And what I found is that artists want to come together and raise money. We want to call attention to things that are important to us. We want to do all those things and we will do all those things. And we can do that at the same time that we are doing something incredibly stupid on stage because that's what we want to be doing.
Well, you can bring, you know what? Sometime maybe that sign should be at a
Yeah.
rally. Maybe get it out into the streets. Maybe go out. And again, I don't want anyone to feel targeted here because I'm not actually commenting on anyone directly. I'm really not. I'm actually really not vague looking, and I know that's unusual in burlesque. But the reason I think is because of that fatigue, because of that sort of blindness to that just sort of normalizing it. It just I'm getting impatient. I'm getting impatient, and I'm seeing it more and more as uh performative. And I know that's weird considering that we're all performers, but I think we need
Like
a little bit more than that
if burlesque
to
at
make
its
good art.
heart, right, what makes it so powerful is the vulnerability. Arguably, right? There are many things, but one
Yeah.
thing, right, that is very powerful is watching someone be so vulnerable and to see them and have that moment that we all had at one time when we saw burlesque for the first time and went, "Oh my God, could I do that? Could I do that?" Right? Inviting that possibility. Like I think that to be to be doing something out of fear, out of insecurity is in order to prevent yourself from potentially being called out feels to me like the opposite of vulnerability, right? So I think something to ask oneself, we were being kind of like off the cuff about like signs and stuff like that. It's like, no, like that can be great. The act of
Yeah.
fucking Donald Trump's
Yeah.
head can be great. If it feels like it's coming from that authentic, vulnerable place, where I think we're running into things that just
Yes.
feel like, come on, y'all, we're losing the plot. It's safe. It's
It's
safe.
safe. It's just
Exactly.
safe.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think if you want to be
Yes.
transgressive, then be fucking transgressive. If you want to
Yes.
push the envelope, then push the fucking envelope. And and maybe it's because I've done this 20 years. Maybe it is because I remember where we were, what we were doing in 2007 and what seemed so transgressive that now I had to go through what I had to get through to get
Hmm.
through where I had to get through. Sure, sure, sure. But there are acts where literally one of my big acts, one of my big art acts was literally words on a bunch of tank tops that I would pull off. And they were words that had been assigned to me. And then at a certain point, I had to say to myself,
Mm.
no one's calling me these things anymore. Why am I putting this on every day to share trauma dump with other people? And even like to be like, and even if I am being called these things by, losers on
Hmm.
the internet, which is true, is true. Um, on my Facebook requests, the first thing that's been there for about
Oh.
6 months now is somebody calling me a faggot. Uh, which I keep there
Uh-huh.
sort of just to chuckle at now. Because I'm not threatened by that person. I don't really give a fuck about that person. And I've also kind of embraced the word faggot in my old gayness. But 'cause it was never a word in my youth that was really hurled at me. So it's sort of been sort of
Mm.
interesting to sort of deconstruct that word. In any event, that was an aside. But to sort of keep putting on words that are abusive and choosing to put on those words. Um, One really great example, I don't know if you're familiar with Lillian Bustle. She has an act where she has the word no written all over her, but she scrubs it off and has
Oh,
the
love.
audience write yes on her. And I think that that is a far more engaging and connecting because it also brings the audience literally and it's saying yes to her and it's saying yes for them. And I think that that's actually a very simple, concise concept that has a universe
Yes.
of meaning behind it. And so much of what we do is we're sort of boxing ourselves and victimizing ourselves by saying we're doing these things. And we're being flip specifically when it comes to things that mean to us. I am not going to tell a Black performer not to do an act where they put words that hurt them that they're reclaiming or they're taking back. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to do that for disability rights activists who are taking language, for trans individuals who are taking language. That I think is its own thing,
Right.
because that
Right.
actually still is transgressive to a certain degree. I'm mostly talking to the white feminists right now. Mostly when I'm talking. But to that end, I also then say, okay, to the people of color, to the disabled, to the trans individuals, to the other marginalized folks, who are you giving those words to say? Because what are we telling the audience? That you've been called that? We know that. We know that. We're sorry. Hopefully. Hopefully we're sorry. What are we doing with that? How do we get past that? I'm not telling you to immediately get through your trauma, but I'm saying as an artist,
Yeah.
who are you
And what an
making that art
interesting
for?
question, like for you, when you had that moment of just kind of realizing, like, okay, this meant something to me at some time, at some point. This meant something to me. Yes, yes.
It was a
But to
crucial act.
recognize,
Absolutely.
I don't think
Absolutely.
that's doing the same thing for me anymore. And to question oneself at a certain point in the growth of your art, I mean, that is such a hard thing to do, but it's such a critical thing to do. And I would just, I what would you
Hmm.
say is like, where did you find that next step of what felt crucial in that same way, but was like new territory for you?
I think
Mhm.
embracing more of the face, embracing more of
Yeah.
saying it without saying it,
Yep.
acting a little bit more authentically. I still want to break your heart, but I
Yeah.
don't want you to feel bad for me. Like that's the thing also. I want you to
Yeah.
feel bad for yourself.
Yeah.
I want us to share
Yeah.
in a cosmic loneliness,
Yeah.
because I still have acts that are about loneliness and that are about desperation or despondence in some capacity, or cosmic loneliness, because I felt that very deeply as a young faggy kid who didn't know what any of this was, and still is somewhat wibbly
Mhm.
wobbly on the gender world, but for all intents and purposes identifies as a man, because I feel sure, why not? Why can't I, whatever
Right.
wibbly wobbly I am, also still be called that? Um, so I think that really what it was a push to be less literal. Literal is fun, and literal can be good, and literally is very often very helpful in comedy. It's not as
Mm.
useful to me in dramatic.
Yeah.
I like metaphor. I like simile and making things mean things that they don't get me wrong. I mean, sometimes, like, if we watch a horror movie and the trauma is the trauma, sure, okay. But I still like a Babadook. I still like a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
metaphor with it to get us there, to get us there. Um, Partially because then I feel it gets too clinical. Like, if it's an abuse allegory, but it's just about abuse, well, then you're just getting abused. And I don't necessarily want to engage in that as entertainment personally. But if you're sharing with me that, oh, the ghosts weren't really this the whole time because it was a manifestation, okay, great. I'm kind of more there for that. You know what I mean? I want a Rosemary's Baby. I don't
Saw.
necessarily want to, you know. You know what's funny is Saw gets a lot of shit, but really Saw 2 through 10 is really the issue. Saw 1 isn't nearly as torture porny as it eventually gets. Hostel is
Yeah, there's
certainly Terrifier. I mean, but even that puts it under the
totally.
ridiculousness of it
Yeah, I
all
think,
as
when
well. So torture
when
porn
I watch
is
your
odd
your
and
acts
nuanced
that
even.
are indeed heartbreaking, I love that you like,
Oh,
I think that you are someone who, like, as you've grown from that place of like taking your tank tops off that have the writing on them, right? I feel
yeah.
like you have grown into
Yeah.
someone who really trusts burlesque as an art form. And I think that that's what I'm really asking for people to do is like trust what burlesque can do
Mm.
and see what you trust your audience to get
Trust
it
your
right,
audience to get
exactly,
it
like
too.
trust that
Yeah.
this is an
Yeah.
effective mode of communication because it communicated with you, it brought you in, it made you love it, like
Yeah.
that is enough. And I think that often that desire, like, oh, I need to bring in language, I need to bring in something that is more than what burlesque offers, is comes from a place of insecurity of not trusting
Yeah.
our art form to communicate what we need it to. But I think that it does have that ability. It just requires more thought. It requires a different kind of thinking. It requires maybe getting into some kind of feedback group, asking like, what can I do with my body, with my costume, with my song choice, with all of those elements at my disposal? How can I create something that carries the message that I want it to create?
Mm.
Uh, it might require more effort, you know? Language is easy, but it also is, it I think can be more limited. Like you're saying, like the kind of like, I love what you said about the universe of potential meaning that the yes and the no can have. Like that works to me
Mm.
because it
Mm.
feels expansive. It feels like it's inviting everything in. And I think that burlesque has that
Mhm.
ability because it too is very like simple and striking, but I think can create that kind of like more expansive meaning than language can in some ways. And I say that as someone
Mhm.
who loves language. I just think burlesque is a different, it's doing something different,
Yeah.
man. And I want people to embrace that. I want them to embrace what our art form does, what our art form is capable of doing.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And interactive as
Yes.
well. It's not just
Yeah, right. The
two,
language
two.
is just
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
like signifying one direction. It's just yeah, so how
Hmm.
do you, yeah, how do you make it bi-directional? How, what a cool creative prompt, right?
Right. Well, audience at home, that is also your prompt to comment. Whenever you see when if you're listening, I would love to hear from you because there are occasions. So when I go to the Burlesque Hall of Fame, or if I'm at a festival where there happens to be people who have listened to the pod and they tell me, I have to tell you, it's extraordinarily gratifying. So if you want to make me feel good, tell me that you've listened, and you can do that on the internet. You don't actually have to be in the same room as me to do that. And I also encourage you to do that with other performers as well. Is not every performer does the stage door. Not every performer does that, but if they are in the space, there's a somewhat understanding that an audience member might go up to you and say something to you. Be cool, be respectful, keep it moving, but tell people if their art resonates with
Yes.
you because it
Love
will
that.
only make better art. Catty Wompass, I don't know. I was not anticipating this fabulous symposium, but I really have to say it was very
Yes.
gratifying for me on this Monday afternoon. I really do appreciate your time. Before I let you go and carry off into the world, your message, whether it's on cardboard or not, where can people
Yeah,
keep up with
absolutely. I
all of
think
your goings
Instagram's
and
the
comings?
best. I'm at Miss Catty Wampus. And Instagram hates me and wants to keep me down. So you kind of got to type in that whole thing. I don't just show up. They don't want me to.
I know. Well, that shows in longevity because a lot of us who have been here for a while on that platform
Absolutely.
are the ones that get screwed.
Been here.
It's the absolutely. Films. And also
Yes. Yeah.
Body Haha.
It's
Happens
a
how often and where?
quarterly show and so our next one is going to be an all comedy showcase on May 23rd. Going to be a fun one. Yeah.
Nice. Very, very nice. Cool, cool, cool. Well, have I performed in Iowa? I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have, but I'll
I
go
would
back if I
love that,
haven't, if I
Viktor.
have.
Yes, let's do
So you
it.
let me know. Um, well, I adore spending time with you at shows, and this has also been lovely. I'm glad that we had a time here to reconnect. May our paths cross again soon, and the
Yes.
twain at that stage meet. Um, Continue to thrive, however 2026 shakes out, no matter what.
Let's
And
do it. Yeah, you're
let's do some stuff.
phenomenal interviewer, my friend.
Let's do it.
Wonderful question.
Oh,
Love
thank
this
you.
experience. Love
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Bye.
All right. Be well. Mwah.
WEBurlesque the podcast, created, developed, and edited by Viktor Devon. Podcast artwork by Logan Laveau. WEBurlesque the podcast cover art photography by Atticus Stevenson. Theme song, On a 45 by This Way to the Egress, used with permission. All incidental music via Pixabay under the expectation of fair use. Please visit WeBurlesquePodcast.com for notes on this and every other episode. Follow WeBurlesque and Viktor Devon on just about every platform, and support the podcast via patreon.com/WeBurlesque. Don't got the cash? Please follow, subscribe, and give 5 stars on every platform you can get your hands on. It really does help. All original material is owned by Viktor Devon and White Elephant Burlesque Corporation. All other materials property of their respective copyright. No infringement, while likely, is intended. This episode, and all episodes thereafter, are in memory of Lucky Charming. Miss you, friend. And that's it.
Woohoo!